Hey there, it's Mo Bunnell, your host here at Real Relationships, Real Revenue. I'm author of the Snowball System, and I and my teams have trained over 15,000 high-end professionals all over the world on sound, efficient, authentic business development techniques. And I'm joined by Jay Baer. This is our third of four interviews with Jay. Then I'm doing a fifth recap episode. And man, I have loved taping these with Jay. He's one of the best marketing minds in the world. I think our system's one of the best business development systems in the world. And man, when you pair those together, you've got some magic. And that's exactly what it was like taping these episodes with Jay. In this one, I'm going to ask him how we can use marketing, how we can use his best advice to deepen relationships. And where we went with this was really cool. Now, know this. If you want our best ideas on how to deepen relationships, go over to growbigplaybook.com. That's where you can sign up for our Grow Big Playbook. And that's our weekly little newsletter that we send out. It'll have, typically you can read it in about 5 minutes, and it'll have a big insight that you can put in to place right away to deepen your relationships and bring in the meaty business that you want. That's at growbigplaybook.com. All right, here's Jay Baer on how we can deepen relationships. Hey everybody, it's Mo. You know me, your host here at Real Relationships, Real Revenue, joined by Jay Baer. Hey, if you didn't catch the last two episodes, Jay's sage advice about how do we get better at business development, how do we create and close more deals, all that stuff's in the last two episodes, and man, it was meaty. It packs a punch. In this one, Jay, I'm asking you a question that I think is interesting, so I'm not sure where you're going to go with it, and it is, how do we use, or what, I'll actually go broader. What's your best advice on how we can deepen relationships?
Well, I think first of all, understanding that the more transactional you think about the relationship, the more transactional that relationship's going to feel. So I think philosophically, it's about valuing the relationship as a relationship more than you value what you're going to yield from that relationship. See, a lot of people have relationships because they believe it's going to create some sort of business development victory for them. They have relationships because they believe they're going to get paid. If that's your philosophy, ultimately you're not going to have deep and rich relationships because people see that coming. You might be really good at hiding it, right? But eventually they understand that you're here because there's money at stake. The same way that dogs can smell fear, potential clients can smell desperation. So the best way to go about this, Mo, quite literally, is to build relationships that you want to have because you want to have a relationship. And if it ends up that somebody gets paid, great. But if not, that's okay too. That's the first piece. The second piece is to be there before the sale. My friend Chris Brogan and his co-author Julian Smith wrote a book called Trust Agents. The second edition of Trust Agents came out last year. It's terrific. I really recommend it. And one of their key tenets is to be there before the sale. The idea is that you say, all right, if we want to try and sell something to somebody at some point in the future, build those relationships now, even if you don't have anything to sell or you're not the right answer today. Maybe someday you will be. And this idea that, hey, let me build a relationship with you, and 7 days later, I'm asking you if I can send you an invoice. That's not actually a relationship. See, you might think it is, but it's not actually a relationship. And so their idea is that you truly build a relationship. You follow people on social media and you comment on their posts because you're a human being, and you have conversations with them that aren't about business. And then eventually, maybe there will be a commercial relationship. And that's the key word, Mo, that nobody actually embraces. The key word in all of this is eventually. The reason most people suck at business development is that they're not patient. And in some cases, it's not their choice. I understand that. But ultimately, it's because they're not playing the long game. They're playing the short game and trying to convince themselves it's the long game, but it's really not. So if you're trying to figure out what relationships to build today, it should be the relationships that you might try to monetize in 2022. What's the best time to plant a tree? 20 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Today. And relationships work the exact same way. And of course, I wrote a whole book about this called Utility, which is about the fact that marketing is about help, not hype. If you really want to build deeper, more valuable relationships that yield victories eventually, then it is your responsibility to add all the value to the relationship, right? People always think of it as a quid pro quo, like, well, I'll give them something if they give me something. No, 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 man, that's totally wrong. You give them something every time. And if they choose to give something back, that's a gravy. That's the philosophy you
Yeah, I
got to
totally
take.
agree. So, a quick story, and I'll get back to you. We were working with a high-end management consulting one time, and the person goes, "Man, I just had a major unlock moment. I was thinking that going back and forth with prospects was like tennis. Like I lob something to them, and I can't lob anything back till they respond." We're going, "No, no, no. You're just like you're practicing your serve. You just keep being helpful."
Yes.
So that was a
Yep.
huge deal for him. But a lot of folks haven't gone through our full sessions. So I think our audience is worried about this. I hear it all the time, Jay, and I want to get your feedback on it. A lot of times in this high end professional space we work in, you know our audience, they can be reluctant to get personal. They can say, well, I'm only allowed to be commercial. I'm only allowed to talk about the law. I'm only allowed to talk about our healthcare services or whatever. So, what's your best advice to get people over that hump, treat people as human beings, and have a professional but also a personal relationship?
We have a lot of those clients too. And I would say usually that's used as an excuse, not as an actual problem. There's a lot of folks out there that say, well, the corporate policy is we can't be personal. Well, if you actually read the policy, that's not what it says. That's how you've interpreted it because you don't want to get personal, right? So your lack of comfort does not equal policy. That's the first thing I'll say. Second thing is who you are is infinitely, listen to me, what I'm going to say right now. Who you are is infinitely more interesting than what you do. Unless you're like an astronaut. That's like literally like the only list, or maybe like that's maybe the only one. So if you are a management consultant, nifty, you know how many management consultants there are out there? Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands. That is not interesting. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how cutting edge your practice is. Don't care. You've already bored me. But if you are a management consultant that happens to win prizes for their roses, now I'm interested, and now I'm going to remember that. I don't even like roses. I had them before. I tore them up because they're a pain in the ass to grow, but I will remember that you're the rose guy because our actual lives are interesting. Our work lives are boring. So if you can't find a way to insert a little personality into your interactions with people, you got to work on that, right? And it's not about like, hey, let's go out and do body shots at the disco. Like there's a happy medium there, guys. Like, it's okay to treat people like people. Not only is it okay, trust me when I tell you, it will work a lot better.
Well, I'm cracking up because I was an actuary in a former life at a consulting firm, so I just thought of body shops in a disco with actuaries,
Yeah,
like the whole
it'd be
thing was
perfect.
fun.
One of the reasons people are bad at this is that they don't take the time to actually learn who the person they're trying to have a relationship with, what they are about, right? So, how can I add value that's not based on work if I don't know who you actually are? If I don't know what your hobbies are, your passions, your family, what you do, right? So, you got to learn whether it's, by having conversations or social media stalking or some combination, you have to learn what that person cares about outside of business for you to provide value outside of business. And so a lot of times people say that they're not comfortable being personal, but it's because they haven't done the work to know what actually would be interesting in that realm.
I totally agree. And for our audience, the people we're both talking to, it is really hard to tell if some management consultant, back to that example, is 20 or 30% smarter or better, but it is really easy to tell if they care more. It's really easy to tell if they're interesting and things like
100%.
that. And the bar is so low. You don't have to be that interesting. You just have to be more interesting than the other people who are probably avoiding this conversation.
Like
So
they say, right? If you get attacked by a bear, you don't have to be the fastest runner, just faster than one other person in your group.
that's right. So you just have to be more interesting than the average accountant or whatever.
Right,
Like,
right. I
yeah,
like your chances. If you're watching this show, I like your chances.
yeah, I like it. That's right. All right, folks. Our audience is gonna want to know, Jay, where should they get more on this topic, this particular
Yeah.
topic? But I think what you cover in utility.
Yeah, you bet. The book on this topic is called Utility, YOU, Utility, New York Times bestseller. It's the utility principle of focusing on help, not hype, is part of the marketing structure of tons of enterprise organizations all over the world. It's got a whole thing associated with it. So if you pick up the book, that'd be a great place. And then at convinceandconvert.com, which is our main site, there's lots and lots of resources about utility there as well.
Well, I love it. And as we talked about in a prior episode, it's helpful to have other people rave about your work. So Jay, I'll rave about your work. One of the things I loved about utility was the idea of frame of mind awareness,
Mhm.
how you talk about building trust, friend of mine awareness,
Yeah.
really applicable to our audience. So audience, I want to get real specific here because I like utility and I think you will too. So Jay, thanks for being on the show. Folks, in our next episode, this is super cool. We're going to ask Jay his best advice on how do we hack our habits to do the kind of stuff we're doing right now when we're ridiculously busy with client work, but we know these kind of things are going to align with our long-term success. So check that out. That's coming up next. Jay, thanks for being on the show.
You bet. Thanks, Mo.